Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
How to be here.
Today we're tackling something that I know a lot of you have been asking about, speaking English.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Especially for those of you who are just starting out,
Right.
It can feel pretty overwhelming.
For sure.
So we've got a bunch of great sources lined up that we'll be diving into.
Absolutely.
Packed with tips and tricks and advice for how to improve your speaking skills.
That's right. And we're going to make it easy to understand and fun too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's get started.
Okay, so one thing that really struck me from the sources is that speaking English, it's not just about, memorizing vocabulary, words, and grammar rules.
Right. It's more than that.
It's really about using your voice as a tool for communication.
So like actually expressing yourself.
Exactly. Sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your stories with the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And that's what makes it so powerful,
Absolutely.
Huh.
But for someone who's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I get it, but how does that actually benefit me?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
When you can speak English, you can connect with people from all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
You can share your culture, your experiences. Travel, exactly.
Make new friends.
Build relationships, even advance your career.
Wow, so it really opens up a lot of doors.
It does. It's like having a key to a whole new world of possibilities.
I like that. A key to a whole new world.
Yeah, and I know it can be intimidating to start speaking a new language.
Oh, tell me about it. I still remember when I first tried to order food in Spanish. I was so nervous I could barely get the words out.
I totally get it, and that's why one of the biggest hurdles people face is fear,
The fear of making mistakes.
Exactly, the fear of sounding silly or not being understood.
Right, because no one wants to feel like that.
No, and that's where shifting your mindset comes in.
Oh, how so?
Well, instead of seeing mistakes as failures, you need to start seeing them as opportunities to learn.
Oh, interesting. So like embrace the mistakes.
Exactly. Every time you make a mistake, you're actually getting closer to speaking fluently.
So it's all part of the process.
It is. And the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
That makes sense. And speaking of practice, our sources suggest some really fun ways to make learning English more engaging.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like what?
Well, for starters, they talk about tongue twisters.
Tongue twisters. Oh, like...
Yeah, like, she sells seashells by the seashore.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Right, those are fun.
They can be a lot of fun and surprisingly helpful.
How so?
Well, they train your mouth muscles to form those tricky English sounds.
Oh, so it's like a workout for your tongue.
Exactly. And another fun exercise they suggest is role-playing.
Role-playing? What do you mean?
Like imagine you're at a restaurant ordering food.
Okay.
Or asking for directions on the street.
I see.
You practice those everyday conversations in a safe environment.
So you can get comfortable with the language before you actually have to use it in real life.
Precisely. It's like a dress rehearsal.
I like that. Right. And the best part is you can tailor those role-playing scenarios to your own interests and goals.
Oh, that's cool. So if you're planning a trip, you could practice checking into a hotel or something like that.
Exactly. Or ordering food at your favorite restaurant.
That's a great idea.
Right. So it makes it more relevant to your own life.
It does, and it makes it more fun, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what about those of us who are maybe a bit shy or intimidated by the idea of speaking out loud?
Right. That's a common feeling, especially when you're just starting out.
So what can you do?
Well, one of the easiest and most effective ways to practice is to simply record yourself speaking.
Wait, talk to myself.
Yeah, it sounds a little strange, but it really works.
Okay, explain.
You can use your phone or a computer to record yourself reading a passage from a book or an article, or even just having a conversation with yourself.
Or like, I'm my own conversation partner.
Exactly, and then you can listen back to the recording and identify areas where you need to improve.
Oh, I see. So it's like a way to pinpoint your weaknesses.
It is, and it also helps you get used to the sound of your own voice speaking English.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you know what else you can do?
What's that?
Find a language exchange partner.
Oh, like a language buddy.
Exactly, someone who's learning your native language and wants to practice speaking English with you.
That sounds fun.
It is. It's a great way to make new friends and learn about different cultures.
And you can help each other out along the way.
Right. It's a win-win situation.
I like it. And there are so many online platforms and apps that connect language learners from all over the world.
It's amazing how easy it is to find someone to practice with these days.
It is. Technology is pretty amazing.
It really is. And speaking of technology, there are also tons of language learning apps out there.
Oh yeah, like Duolingo and Babbel.
Exactly. Those are great for building vocabulary, learning grammar, and practicing pronunciation.
It's like having a personal tutor in your pocket.
Exactly. And they make learning fun and engaging.
But let's be real, learning a new language,
Right.
it takes time and effort.
It's not something that happens overnight.
So how can we stay motivated when those inevitable bumps in the road appear?
That's a great question, and one of the most important things to remember is that learning English is a journey, not a race.
So be patient with yourself.
Exactly. Celebrate the small victories along the way.
Don't get discouraged if you hit a plateau.
Right. And most importantly, make it fun.
Oh yes, fun is key.
If you enjoy the process, you're much more likely to stick with it.
Speaking of fun, I remember reading about storytelling as a way to practice English.
Storytelling.
Yeah, it sounds a lot more exciting than just drilling grammar rules.
It is, and it's a great way to use your imagination and get those creative juices flowing.
But what if you're not a natural storyteller?
You don't have to be a professional writer to tell a story.
Okay, good point.
You can start with something simple like describing your day or talking about your hobbies.
So it's more about expressing yourself and getting those words out there.
Exactly. The more you practice, the easier it will become.
And you might even discover a hidden talent for storytelling along the way.
You never know.
So we've talked about the benefits of speaking English.
Right.
We've talked about overcoming fear.
And finding fun ways to practice.
But what about those real-life interactions?
Ah, yes, the moment of truth when you actually have to use your English skills in the real world.
That can be pretty nerve-wracking.
It can be, but you know what?
What's that?
Most native English speakers are actually very patient and encouraging when they meet someone who's learning the language.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they appreciate the effort you're making, and they're usually happy to help.
That's good to know.
So don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're part of the learning process.
And every mistake is a chance to learn and improve.
Precisely so. Go out there and practice your English with confidence.
But what about those moments when you just can't seem to find the right words?
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like your brain freezes up and you completely blank.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one tip I found helpful is to try to relax and focus on the message you're trying to convey, rather than getting hung up on finding the perfect words.
So it's more important to get your point across than to sound like a walking dictionary.
Exactly. And remember, you can always use gestures, facial expressions, or even drawings to help you communicate.
Right, sometimes actions speak louder than words.
They do, and if you're still struggling, don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
Like, could you please repeat that?
Exactly, or could you explain that in a different way?
Most people are happy to help if they know you're genuinely trying to understand.
They are, so don't let fear hold you back from engaging in conversation.
That's all about practice and putting yourself out there.
And with each conversation, you'll gain more confidence and fluency.
I love that. And speaking of confidence, our sources talk about the importance of celebrating those small victories along the way.
Yes, celebrating those wins is so important for staying motivated.
Why is that?
Because learning a language can be a long and challenging journey, and it's easy to get discouraged if you're only focused on the end goal of fluency.
So we need to acknowledge and appreciate those small steps forward.
Exactly like learning a new word, understanding a native speaker having your first conversation in English.
It's like giving yourself a pat on the back for all the hard work you're putting in.
It is, and it helps you stay positive and keep that momentum going.
I like that. And it reminds you that you're making progress even when it doesn't feel like it.
Right, progress isn't always linear. There will be ups and downs.
But as long as you keep practicing, you'll get there.
You will, and you know what else can help?
What's that?
Understanding why you're learning English in the first place.
Oh yeah. What's your motivation?
Exactly, because when you have a clear purpose in mind, it's easier to stay focused and committed.
So what are some common reasons why people learn English?
Well, one of the biggest ones is to connect with people from different cultures and backgrounds.
Yeah, I could see that English is like a global language.
It is, and it allows you to communicate with people from all over the world.
To share ideas, to learn from each other, to build bridges.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for fostering understanding and connection.
And for some people, learning English is about pursuing their dream.
Oh, absolutely. Like studying abroad or working for an international company.
Or even just enjoying their favorite movies and music in their original language.
Right. It opens up a world of possibilities.
And I imagine there are also people who are motivated by a love of language itself.
Of course, some people are fascinated by the intricacies of grammar, the beauty of poetry, the nuances of different dialects.
It's like appreciating English as an art form.
It is, and for others, learning English is about personal growth and self-improvement.
So it's not just about acquiring a new skill, but also about expanding your horizons and challenging yourself mentally.
Exactly. It's about pushing your boundaries, stepping outside your comfort zone, and becoming a more well-rounded individual.
I love that perspective. It's like a reminder that Learning English is not just a means to an end, but also a journey of self-discovery.
And speaking of journeys, I remember when I first started learning Italian.
Oh, tell me more. I'm always fascinated by personal stories about language learning.
Well, I've always been captivated by Italian culture. The art, the food, the music, the history.
It's such a vibrant and rich culture.
It is, and I wanted to experience it all firsthand, so I decided to take the plunge and sign up for an intensive language course in Florence.
Wow, Florence, that sounds like the perfect setting to learn Italian.
It was incredible. I was surrounded by the language and culture everywhere I went.
I bet you were completely immersed.
I was, but it wasn't all sunshine and gelato. I remember feeling completely overwhelmed at first.
Really?
Yeah, everyone seemed to be speaking at lightning speed, and I could barely understand a word.
I can imagine it's like being thrown into the deep end of the pool when you've only just learned to float.
That's a perfect analogy, but I was determined to make the most of the opportunity, so I forced myself to step outside my comfort zone and started chatting with locals, even if it was just to order a cappuccino or ask for directions.
That takes guts.
It did, but you know what?
Okay.
The more I practiced, the more confident I became.
So it really does get easier over time.
It does, and I started picking up on patterns in the language, recognizing familiar words, even stringing together a few sentences.
That's fantastic.
It was, and you know what really helped?
What's that?
Embracing the mistakes. I realized that Italians were incredibly patient and encouraging.
Oh, that's good to hear.
They didn't mind if I made grammatical errors or mispronounced words. They were just happy that I was making an effort to communicate in their language.
That's so heartwarming. It really highlights the power of human connection.
It does, and it taught me a valuable lesson. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Because they're an inevitable part of the learning process.
They are, and they actually help you learn and grow.
I love that takeaway.
So embrace the mistakes and keep practicing.
And speaking of practice, I want to circle back to those fun exercises we were discussing earlier.
Oh yes, tongue twisters, role-playing storytelling.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially for beginners who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Right, those activities are great for building fluency and confidence.
And they make learning more enjoyable.
Exactly. When you're having fun, you're more likely to stick with it.
So true. So let's break down these exercises a bit further, starting with tongue twisters.
Okay, tongue twisters are designed to challenge your pronunciation and articulation.
And they can be quite hilarious to try.
They can, especially when you get your tongue all twisted up.
But they're also really effective for training your mouth muscles to form those tricky English sounds.
Right. It's like a workout for your tongue.
Exactly. And then we have role-playing.
Role-playing is a great way to practice real-life conversations in a safe and controlled environment.
Like imagine you're at a restaurant ordering food.
Okay.
Or asking for directions on the street. You can practice those everyday interactions without the fear of making mistakes in front of native speakers.
And you can tailor the scenarios to your specific needs and interests.
Exactly. So if you're planning a trip, you could practice checking into a hotel or ordering food at your favorite restaurant.
It's like a dress rehearsal for those real-life situations.
And by practicing those conversations beforehand, you'll feel much more confident and prepared when you actually encounter them.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the power of storytelling.
Oh yes, storytelling is such a powerful tool for language learning.
It is, because when you tell a story, you're not only using vocabulary and grammar, but you're also engaging your imagination and creativity.
And it's a fun way to express yourself and share your experiences with others.
Exactly. And you know what?
What's that?
Your stories don't have to be complicated or elaborate.
Oh, good, because I'm not exactly a novelist.
You don't have to be. You can start with simple anecdotes about your day, your hobbies, or something interesting that happened to you recently.
So the key is to just get those words flowing and not be afraid to experiment.
Precisely. And as you become more comfortable, you can start challenging yourself with more complex stories.
And incorporating new vocabulary and grammar structures.
Exactly. It's all about building confidence and having fun with the language.
Well said.
And I think that's a good place to pause for now.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground today, but there's still so much more to explore.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into the world of English speaking.
We will delve deeper into those fun exercises and share more tips for staying motivated on your language learning journey.
And we'll also be tackling the big question of how to interact with native English speakers in real-life situations.
So until then, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself.
Because you can do it.
We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration to help you achieve your English speaking goals.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive even deeper into the world of English speaking.
I'm excited to pick up where we left off. We were just about to talk about how to handle those real-life conversations with native English speakers.
Right, because let's face it, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. It's one thing to practice in the comfort of your own home, but it's a whole other ball game when you're out in the real world.
Absolutely. But you know what?
What's that?
You might be surprised to learn that most native English speakers are actually really patient and encouraging when they encounter someone who's learning the language.
Oh, really? That's good to hear.
Yeah, they understand the challenges of learning a new language and they appreciate the effort you're making.
So we don't need to be afraid of making mistakes in front of them.
Not at all. In fact, most people find it endearing when someone is trying their best to communicate in a new language.
That's a relief to know.
It is. And remember, every interaction is a learning opportunity.
Right. Even if you stumble over a few words or make a grammatical error.
Exactly. The important thing is to keep practicing and keep putting yourself out there.
But what about those moments when you just can't seem to find the right words? It's like your brain freezes up and all that vocabulary you've been practicing just vanishes into thin air.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. It's called language anxiety, and it's a completely normal reaction.
So what can you do when that happens?
Well, one tip that I've found helpful is to try to relax and focus on the message you're trying to convey, rather than getting hung up on finding the perfect words.
So it's more important to get your point across than to sound like a walking dictionary.
Exactly. And remember, you can always use gestures, facial expressions, or even drawings to help you communicate if you're struggling to find the right words.
Right. Sometimes actions speak louder than words.
They do. And if you're still struggling, don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
Like, could you please repeat that, or could you explain that in a different way?
Exactly. Most people are happy to slow down, rephrase, or provide more context if they know you're genuinely trying to understand.
So it's better to ask for help than to pretend you understand something when you really don't.
Absolutely. It shows that you're engaged in the conversation and eager to learn.
And remember, everyone was a beginner at some point.
That's right. We've all been there.
So don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Exactly. The important thing is to keep practicing and keep learning.
And speaking of learning, I want to circle back to those fun exercises we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah. Those are great for building confidence and fluency, especially for beginners.
Absolutely. So let's break them down a bit further, starting with tongue twisters.
Okay, so tongue twisters are designed to challenge your pronunciation and articulation. They force you to pay close attention to the sounds of English and how to form those sounds correctly.
And they can be quite hilarious to try, especially when you get your tongue all twisted up.
They can. It's a good way to lighten the mood and not take yourself too seriously.
Exactly. And they're also really effective for training your mouth muscles to form those tricky English sounds.
Right. It's like a workout for your tongue.
And then we have role-playing.
Ah, yes. Role-playing is a fantastic way to practice real-life conversations in a safe and controlled environment.
Like imagine you're at a restaurant ordering food or asking for directions on the street.
Exactly. You can practice those everyday interactions without the fear of making mistakes in front of native speakers.
And you can tailor the scenarios to your specific needs and interests.
Precisely. So if you're planning a trip, you could practice checking into a hotel or ordering food at your favorite restaurant.
It's like a dress rehearsal for those real-life situations.
And by practicing those conversations beforehand, you'll feel much more confident and prepared when you actually encounter them.
Absolutely. And last but not least, we have storytelling.
Ah, storytelling, one of my favorites.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a powerful tool for language learning.
It is, because when you tell a story, you're not only using vocabulary and grammar, but you're also engaging your imagination and creativity.
And it's a fun way to express yourself and share your experiences with others.
Exactly. And you know what? Your stories don't have to be complicated or elaborate. You can start with simple anecdotes about your day, your hobbies, or something interesting that happened to you recently.
So the key is to just get those words flowing and not be afraid to experiment.
Precisely. And as you become more comfortable, you can start challenging yourself with more complex stories.
And incorporating new vocabulary and grammar structures.
Exactly. It's all about building confidence and having fun with the language.
Well said. And speaking of confidence, I think it's time for a little pep talk.
I agree. Our listeners could probably use a boost of motivation right about now.
So what words of wisdom do you have for our fellow English learners out there?
Well, first and foremost, I would say be patient with yourself. Learning a new language takes time and effort.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And remember, progress isn't always linear. There will be days when you feel like you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. It's like hitting a plateau.
Right. But it's important to remember that those plateaus are temporary.
And that's where persistence comes in.
Exactly. Don't give up on yourself. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep believing in your ability to achieve your goals.
Because you can do it. I truly believe that everyone has the potential to learn a new language, no matter their age or background.
I couldn't agree more. And you know what else can help?
What's that?
Surrounding yourself with a supportive community.
Ah, yes, the power of community.
Exactly. Whether it's a language exchange partner, a study group, or an online forum connecting with other learners can provide encouragement, motivation, and a sense of belonging.
It's like having a cheerleading squad for your language learning journey.
That's a perfect analogy. And remember, you're not alone in this. Millions of people around the world are learning English, and they're facing the same challenges and celebrating the same victories as you.
So true. It's a global community united by a common goal to unlock the power of communication and connect with the world in a deeper way.
Exactly. And that's what makes it all so worthwhile.
Well said. I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about and a renewed sense of motivation to keep going on their English learning adventures.
I hope so. And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. So enjoy the process, embrace the challenges, and celebrate your successes along the way.
Because speaking English is more than just a skill. It's a key that unlocks a world of possibilities.
It opens doors to new experiences, new relationships, and new perspectives.
It's like expanding your horizons and enriching your life in countless ways.
It is. And on that note, I think it's time to move on to our final part of this deep dive.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground, but I'm eager to hear your final thoughts and insights on this topic.
Me too.
Oh.
So stay tuned for part 3. Where we'll wrap up our discussion and leave you with some actionable steps you can take to continue your English-speaking journey.
We'll be back soon.
Okay, so here we are at the final part of our deep dive into English speaking.
I feel like we've covered so much ground already,
We have.
but I'm really curious to hear what your final thoughts are for our listeners.
Well, you know, after everything we've talked about,
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to just take action.
Take action.
Don't wait for the perfect moment or until you feel 100% ready.
Just dive in.
Exactly. The best way to learn is by doing.
So what's one small step our listeners can take today to start improving their English speaking skills?
You know, it can be as simple as this.
Okay.
Find a mirror. Look yourself in the eye and have a conversation with yourself in English.
Wait, hold on. Talk to ourselves in the mirror.
I know it might sound a little strange,
It does.
but trust me, it's a fantastic way to practice speaking without any pressure or fear of judgment.
I see what you mean. No one's watching. No one's listening. Just you and your reflection.
Exactly. And you can talk about anything you like. Describe your day, share your thoughts, practice those tongue twisters we talked about.
Oh yeah, the tongue
I
twister.
think the key is to just get those words flowing and get comfortable hearing yourself speak English.
It's like a secret language workout.
I like that as secret language workout.
And the best part is you can do it anytime, anywhere.
Exactly, in the shower, while you're getting ready in the morning, even while you're waiting in line at the grocery store, every little bit of practice adds up.
I love that idea. It's simple, yet so effective.
It is, and it's a great way to build your confidence and fluency.
So, to all of our listeners out there, I challenge you to give it a try.
Find a mirror and start talking to yourself in English today.
You might be surprised at how much it helps.
And remember, the journey to fluency is a marathon, not a sprint.
So be patient with yourself. Celebrate the small victories and never give up on your dreams.
Because speaking English is more than just a skill.
It's a key that unlocks a world of possibilities.
It allows you to connect with people from all over the world, share your ideas and stories, and experience life to the fullest.
So keep practicing, keep learning, and keep speaking your truth.
The world is waiting to hear your voice.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
It is.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of English speaking.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
And most importantly, we hope you feel empowered to take your English speaking skills to the next level.
So until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep exploring the amazing world of language.
And remember,
Yes,
you can do it.
we believe in you.
Happy speaking, everyone.
Bye for now.